topics. Let's talk about UFC London's main event. A strange one, to put it mildly, BC. In the main event, it lasted a whopping 15 seconds before Tom Aspinall, we still don't know exactly what the injury is. There's obviously been a lot of Twitter doctors telling us what they think it might be. Some of them might be right, but in any case, BC, what is there really to say? He throws a leg kick, retracts it, Aspinall does, and as he retracts it and kind of stumbles a little bit, he seemed to suffer some kind of terrible, debilitating knee injury. They exchanged a few punches right before that. What is there to say about this?
Well, look, it's disappointing. It's the second straight week that we've seen a UFC main event, which we were jazzed the hell up for, that had important title connotations, and boy, did this one come up empty. I mean, it happens, Luke. You know, I was there. I think I was there when Matt Mitrione stick-kicked Sergey Karatanov under the Bellator banner. It happens sometimes in the first 10, 15 seconds. What sucks the most is we were really looking to see who was going to advance, survive and advance, and move closer to that title. And more specifically, the thing that sucks the most is, what does this do to Aspinall's rise? It's a delay of some form, a step back, a detour, however you want to look at it, depending on the severity of it. Let's hope he bounces back and still has an opportunity to get right back in line and continue this march. But what did we learn? I mean, almost next to nothing. I liked what those 15 seconds brought me. It wasn't quite the same tease that Ortega and Yair did in terms of like, oh shit, this really could be as good as we think it could be. But in that 15 seconds, dude, I liked the way Blaydes was countering in his boxing. I certainly liked how he responded to Aspinall off the start, taking the fight to him. Obviously, that means nothing to where this fight was eventually going to go. I think at the end of the day, Luke, we're treated to a lot of great stuff in the UFC. Great matchmaking, consistent cards every weekend. But, you know, this stuff happens once in a while. I don't know if Curtis Blaydes turned Sith between fights and force choked the patella and to force that stoppage. But either way, Luke, he gets the TKO win, whatever you think of that, whatever you think the value of that is. So let me spin it back on you and ask you directly. What is the value of this TKO win, considering we're not running it back in 2 months, right? Aspinall's going to be out. What does this win do to Curtis Blaydes?
Well, he kind of, I thought, accurately described it. He gets a win on his record. He gets his money, which is nice. He doesn't have his ranking position affected. The end result is, it's not that he gets the confidence or I should say the managerial confidence in what it would mean to beat Tom Aspinall. But if Aspinall is really injured and is going to be out for a long while, Blaydes retaining the position that he's in is going to serve him as we figure out what's going to happen with Cyril Gane and Tai Tuivasa. Potentially, I mean, it seems to be nothing but Twitter talk forever, quite literally years at this point, about John Jones's return and potentially a fight with Stipe Miocic. Blaydes still gets to get the benefit, not so much of the win, but as if the fight never happened, and then he just gets to retain the existing rankings position. So it's a good opportunity for him to get some more money and whatever else, and I don't see anyone really blaming him for this in any kind of capacity, so that's nice. But if I'm Curtis Blaydes, I get to go, well, listen, I was supposed to fight Aspinall. It didn't work. It's not my fault. Here I am. I'm going to look up the rankings position as we talk about it right now. Let's pull that up, BC. So currently at heavyweight, he is sitting at number 4. The only ones above him are Tuivasa, Gane, and Miocic. Well, Tuivasa and Gane are going to duke it out. Maybe Gane gets the title shot after that. But if I'm Curtis Blaydes, I say I want either the winner of that or the winner of Miocic and John Jones, whichever comes first, and then use that to get back to the title. That seems to me like you didn't really prove anything in this context because there was nothing provable given what happened, but you are sitting at 4. The ones ahead of you have fights coming up, at least in theory. All of them, Gane just lost, Miocic just lost, Tuivasa's never really been up there. I guess if Tuivasa wins, maybe he'll get a title shot, but that seems, I don't know how unlikely that is. Miocic, hard to know because he has the loss to Francis, although maybe they might run that back. And Gane just lost, so I doubt he'd get it back. If I'm Curtis Blaydes, I want whatever winner of that permutation of Jones and Stipe and Gane and Tuivasa, I want to face whatever winner of that gets him to a title shot, which I think he'd be in place for, would he not?
He would. So that's really the spirit of what I asked you with that is, obviously, like, you know, the 15 seconds, freak injury, you don't gain a lot, I guess, critically, but will the UFC brass and the matchmaking machine ultimately look at this as exactly what it goes down to on the record, a TKO win, and advance him up the ladder as if he had won the match? Or do you think this ends up being a sort of status quo in terms of his standing moving forward? I think he's going to end up benefiting from it, Luke, and maybe he got lucky in the end. It is what it is.
Well, here's the thing. Because he has the losses to Francis and their stoppage losses, and because he has the stoppage loss to Derek Lewis, the reason why he still might be held back is because, again, it's not his fault. There was nothing to prove here, given that the fight was 15 seconds, but he didn't prove anything here. I wonder if they might be hesitant, in part because he's spoken out about, like, hey, I'm just gonna be boring, eat a dick. Right? That's sort of one thing he said in the past. Although, again, against Chris Daukaus, that was not the case at all, and again, in other cases as well. But I do think that he gets to be in a position where he can begin to get, or he's on the verge of getting, I should say, a relevant next fight that could propel him to a title. But I feel like at some point, even if that is the case, which it seems to be, at least from a ranking standpoint, the case, he is going to have to prove something that eluded him here. If he gets to Ivasa or Miocic or Jones or Gane or whatever the case may be, he is going to have to prove that he's a guy that, despite losing to Francis twice, despite losing in the way that he has, he does deserve a title shot. He does deserve to be that next man up. He does deserve to be in that big shot kind of role. He does deserve to be on pay-per-view, for example. I think that there is still, that's the one thing about this Aspinall thing that is lost to him. He does get to be in the catbird seat, so to speak, in terms of really advantageous, advantageous promotionally, I should say, advantageous matchups promotionally that get him to a next spot. But in those contexts, he has to deliver. Like, in other words, if he had gotten a tough but sort of ho-hum win over Aspinall and then another tough but ho-hum win over Gane, at that point you couldn't really deny him. I don't know if he can get a ho-hum win just over Gane and get the title shot. He has to do something really kind of, not like an amazing knockout in round one, but he's got to really deliver the goods and show he's not just a sort of a good guy that sometimes loses when he goes up to the very top, that he has to prove that the doubts about him are relevant to a previous version of himself. He gets to maintain the interesting position in the rankings, but it doesn't solve that other problem that is still kind of lingering for him. That's sort of where I
I agree with that. Now, in terms of, like, look, it goes down as the TKO, whether you like it or not. There's certainly an argument to be made that if a fight ends in 15 seconds, not on a strike, should be a no contest. It's not the rules, though. So, because the rules sort of indicate if you cause injury to your foe under any circumstance, that's looked at as a positive, you get the win. Okay, I mean, like, it's like, could you deem this an accidental foul? You look at the tape closely, there was a kick and a check. Did he check it, Luke, or did he absorb it? Either way,
he absorbed it. It was actually well above the knee, almost near the hip. It was on the meaty part of the thigh, to be honest with you.
Okay, so do you believe, and I don't know if this matters at all in terms of the flip between TKO and no contest, despite what the foundation of the rules are, do you believe the injury was caused on the kick or the landing, or both?
So, hard to know. I tend to think when stuff like this happens that there was something lingering ahead of time, whether they were aware of it or not. I think that the kick probably didn't help, but I think the landing, and if you notice, there is like a half punch that kind of lands and also pushes Aspinall, and he has to kind of catch his balance on a second step very quickly. I tend to think that might have done it. So like a weird, awkward sort of landing in a non-athletic position, that's what maybe did him in. Again, without knowing what the injury is, it's really hard to say. But here's the thing. If he had checked it and caused it, like, I don't know, like we've seen a million times, like Weidman and Silva or something like that, that'd be one thing. But that's not really what happened here. It seemed more circumstantial based on landing. And so I get you what you're saying. It wouldn't be an accidental foul because no foul was committed. He didn't hit the back of the head. He didn't gouge the eyes. He didn't do any Three Stooges bit. But you're right, it is deeply weird to be like, oh, you get a loss based on some kind of injury literally 15 seconds into a bout. That seems unfair, frankly, to both competitors. There should be some kind of other rule to judge that.
Do you consider Brent Primus having been the Bellator lightweight champion, or do you think the similar scenario at MSG against Chandler should have made that a no contest? Is it time to change the rules here, Luke, or is this not the fight you're willing to, the battle you're willing to fight right now?
See, that was nerve damage. I take that seriously. I think that's a real win for Brent Primus. Now, obviously, Michael Chandler got it back. So I think he did prove that of the two, he was the better or the better one, I should say. But yeah, when you hit someone in the nerve and then they can't walk right, and then you just kind of win based on that. Yeah, I think that's legit. I mean, that's part of the reason why you should check. That's part of the reason why those things are in place. But if you hit the meaty portion of someone's thigh, and then your knee gets either dislocated or some kind of ACL tear or whatever happened, those seem not unrelated, but not like directly correlated in the same kind of way. I don't see those as equivalent, personally.
Okay. What do you think we say about Aspinall now, Luke? What do? You just wish him well, hope he can be the same guy when he comes back? I mean,
that's it. That's my only thing is I hope he's not out. My two wishes. One, I hope he's not out too long. Right, that's the first one. And then the second one is I hope he's the same, right? Or at least, reasonably close to being the same, because it would be terrible if he had this amazing build, suffers some kind of traumatic injury, and is able to come back, but it looks like a lesser version of himself. I mean, remember, part of his game, and this is not a knock on him, this is not saying he isn't technical. We all know he quite well is. But part of his game is built on athletic ability. It's about leaping into range, getting out of range, timing and level changes. All of those things are aided by good athleticism and a good athletic base that he has. Remember, he kind of hops on his feet like a Robert Whittaker a little bit at times. If that is at all compromised, it will compromise his game. How badly, I guess we'll have to see. So what I really hope is that the layoff is not long, and then more importantly, he can retain the athletic advantages that have helped make his game what it is. Because I'm telling you, man, if there's any kind of degradation in that, he's gonna have a hard time. I don't know what to make of it other than that, to be quite honest with you.